what story comes to mind, or stories come to mind, that where you were assuming something about life and you eventually realized that wasn't true, and it caused some big eye-opening experience for you, or maybe a small one that led to a big one.
An aha that made me think differently. There have been so many. Um, so many. I think in this context, one of the aha moments I've had is about how Western medicine looks at health. And I read an article many, many years ago written by Elmer Green, who is the grandfather of biofeedback, who talked about health the healthcare system is really a sickness business. And I think that's really important to illuminate right now because people are not feeling wonderful about life. You can see it, it's everywhere. On Facebook, in particular, you can see people are posting about their pain. They're posting about things that they don't understand. They're looking for understanding. They're looking for truth. They're looking for wellness. And I'm just going to say a huge aha moment is when I discovered it really comes from within.
Yeah,
And
what led you
I'll
to
say
that?
that much.
Yeah, what led you to that aha? Because that's a big one. That's a really big one. Welcome to You Are the Medicine. My name is Kim. I'm here with Alistair. We've only recently met on Facebook. We share some common ground in helping others. She is a therapist who helps other therapists. And interesting story. I'll start with that and then we'll dive in. And this very much relates to mindset work. So, I've been getting lots of friend requests because I've been putting out a lot of reels about consciousness and emotional well-being. And I'm assuming through that process is how Alistair discovered me. And I started, obviously, because there's interactions that you have on Facebook that are not with real people or necessarily people that you want to spend a lot of time with. I always do a little bit of digging, like, okay, is this a real human? And, what am I getting myself into? Okay, cool. And I've had that happen so much lately that I don't pay particular attention to all the details, just, do I jive with this person? And so then when you sent me the private message, my mind immediately went to, oh, she's trying to sell me something. She's trying to sell me something I don't want in. I'm just not even going to respond. And so I left it alone. And then, I don't know, a couple weeks after that, I guess you didn't say anymore, which was kudos, because that would have been the point at which I would have been like, oh, please stop.
Yeah, done.
so, so um, then you invited me to your private group, and I was like, oh, all right, well, I'll reach out to her and let her know I'm not a therapist, and see where this goes. And I thought, oh, okay, she just wants to have a connection. We're just building, community here. I love it. And that led to us having some very cool conversation. So the moral of the story is be careful what you assume, because it's not necessarily true. Um, and that leads me into asking you some questions as far as what story comes to mind, or stories come to mind, that where you were assuming something about life and you eventually realized that wasn't true, and it caused some big eye-opening experience for you, or maybe a small one that led to a big one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Kim, I'm so happy to jump in here. Yes, that was a very interesting way that we connected. And one of the things that it made me think of when you were saying all of that is discernment is so important. And you can often feel discernment, you can feel the truth in something. And so knowing how to interpret those inner knowings, I think is so important. And yes, I was very attracted to one of the posts or reels that you made because of your graphic and your ideas about quantum biology. And so, and the question, an aha that made me think differently. There have been so many. Um, so many. I think in this context, one of the aha moments I've had is about how Western medicine looks at health. And I read an article many, many years ago written by Elmer Green, who is the grandfather of biofeedback, who talked about health the healthcare system is really a sickness business. And I think that's really important to illuminate right now because people are not feeling wonderful about life. You can see it, it's everywhere. On Facebook, in particular, you can see people are posting about their pain, they're posting about things that they don't understand, they're looking for understanding, they're looking for truth, they're looking for wellness. And I'm just going to say a huge aha moment is when I discovered it really comes from within.
Yeah,
And
what led you
I'll
to
say
that?
that much.
Yeah, what led you to that aha? Because that's a big one. That's a really big one.
Um, I think it's been a long, meandering path. There have been a series of ahas, thank goodness, along the whole way. Otherwise, I don't think I would have kept going, honestly, because life is tricky. There are so many ups and downs, there are so many pitfalls, unknowns, no guarantees. Something my mom used to say to me all the time is, who told you life was going to be fair? And I'm just here to say, all of that is right. Nobody said life was going to be fair. You don't get born with a little certificate that says, you know what, everything's going to be hunky dory. And if that happened, then I think we would be living in one of those Aldous Huxley novels. But this series of ahas, I just want to emphasize and double tap it because I think people are looking, they're seeking, they're hungry for that big wow. This changed my life. And ultimately, I think for me anyway, there have been some big wows, but it's mostly been a series of listenings to what's drawing me in that direction, what's pulling me that way, learning how to notice when something is drawing me that way. That's an aha moment all the time. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that. Oh, it's coming again. Oh, somebody said that 3 times. So learning how to kind of live life in the noticings of all of the little ahas, I think is really important.
I agree. What resonates for me about what you just said, two things. One, that last part where you're talking about like, oh, and you follow that urging, um, is I've come to understand that my curiosity is linked to my intuition. When I'm really curious about a thing, all right, like my higher self is saying that's something we want to know more about. We want to have that experience. Um, and the other is for the last, we'll say 4 or 5 years, something like that, I have been on this path of enlightenment. And it was only, oh gosh, maybe less than a year ago, probably a lot less than a year ago, honestly, um, where I finally understood. I had this idea that enlightenment meant you're going to reach this pinnacle of like, wow, and the heavens are going to open and everything's going to make sense and it's all going to be perfect and you're going to be in this constant state of flow all the time. And then I recognized, nope, nope, that's not what's happening. It's this constant unfolding. It's this constant staying in the present moment over and over and over and over. And recognizing, and this was another one of those kind of small but big ahas. Present moment doesn't mean like what you said, hunky dory all the time. I recorded a reel this morning. I've been reading, well, I'm going to do a little plug. I'm not an affiliate. I just love this book. It's called The Journey Beyond by Eric Stensland. He's way into nature, which I definitely can relate to. And he's taken all these beautiful photographs of different parts of the world and shares his reflections, deep thought reflections. And I was sharing on one this morning, and what I've been doing, my habit with this book that I've been sharing these reels, just open it up. What does the universe want to say? And I have not once been disappointed with that it has pointed to something that either just happened or was about to happen or was happening while I was reading it. And this morning it was talking about the title of the entry was called Both. And without, going through the whole thing again, it was basically saying there's a balance. There's going to be those moments of great beauty and awe and all the wonderful things. And then there's going to be those moments of darkness and frustration and whatever. And so I finished wrapping up this reel, and I had alluded to that even before I opened the page. Present moment doesn't mean you're always going to feel peachy and hunky-dory, you called it. But also, so I had alluded to that, but also after I finished the reel, I decided I was going to do some editing because during the middle of it, a lawnmower had passed. I was sitting outside at my picnic table here, and a lawnmower had passed. I'm like, well, nobody's going to hear that. So I tried to cut that part out, and I deleted the wrong section, and then I couldn't fix it. Like it was just gone. And so I felt the frustration rising, and kept trying to, I don't know how, probably 10 times, like maybe if I just hit the button one more time. Nope, that didn't do it. And so I'm like, okay, can I just be with the frustration? Can I just be with it? Like I have to redo part of this reel. That's just the way it is. And so in the recording of the replacement part, I shared that, that I had this experience with this frustration. And yes, I allowed myself to feel it because I've made the feeling, it's there. I got to do something with it, and at the same time, I don't have to camp out in it. I could have made it into a whole big story like, this is just terrible and Facebook sucks and blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
And okay, well, I absolutely have permission to do that, but is that how I want to feel right now? Like, do I want to camp out in that? No, not really. Is that going to benefit me in any kind of way? No, it's just going to make my nervous system really bent out of shape. Okay, getting back to the set point, um, and so yeah, recognizing that it isn't always, the present moment isn't going to be this the heavens open and the angels sing, and and sometimes it feels icky.
It's so true. There are so many thoughts that came to mind as you were talking about all of those things, like the aha moments, and how you're recognizing tricky feelings, but you're not camping out in them. And one of the things that aha'd me there was you have practice in it. You've practiced it. You don't have, it doesn't sound like you've got a ton of stuff behind all of that stuff that makes you out of control, blowing up, camping out in those feelings. And so I want to encourage everybody that it's a practice. Being in the present moment is a practice. And that's an aha, is that you might sit every single day for a few minutes, and then over time you have this cumulative effect, and you don't get the aha until later because you haven't spent the time to do it. And so spending the time to practice and to be in that present moment can be one of those ahas.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And I'm remembering I recently read New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and uh, in there's a quote from him where he says, "Our ego likes to think that it's all about the grandiose moments, like what I was just describing with the enlightenment, when in actuality, life is just a series of small moments. And yes, sometimes those big moments come, but they're far and few between compared to what most of life is. And putting in the work, I you think about that in terms of like exercise, for example. You say you're going to start a new exercise routine. You don't start with I'm going to run a marathon. You start with I'm going to jog for 5 minutes or whatever, and you keep doing that until you run the marathon. But it wasn't a marathon day one. It was a series of steps, right? But to apply that then to being mindful or present is, oh, okay, so it's not just, I'm going to eat a little different, I'm going to work out a little different, I'm going to approach my conversations a little differently. It's I'm going to train my mind a little differently every day, even if it's just 5 minutes for today or whatever.
Yeah.
So even that is in itself an aha, right?
Yeah.
um, I
It's easy to
recently,
stay the same.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what's ironic is people, and myself, including myself in this, people often think that that's like they resist the idea that it's comfortable where they're at. And I think probably the better word is it's familiar.
Yeah.
Like if you're dealing with some kind of situation that you really don't enjoy or prefer, and not to say, back to what we said earlier, life isn't going to be peachy or hunky dory all the time, but you can certainly make improvements. But if you are in some situation that you don't prefer and somebody says to you, well, you're comfortable, and you're like, no, I'm not comfortable, this sucks, I hate it, like it's not comfortable at all, it's
Yeah.
familiar. The best analogy I've heard for that is it's like when you own a pair of tennis shoes and you wear them until they're so raggedy, but you don't want to throw them out because you're just so used to wearing them. And, yeah, okay, there's holes in them and they look terrible, but I'm so used to these shoes. I don't want to go get a new pair of shoes and I got to start all over from the new pair of shoes. Even though these ones are hurting my feet and my socks are getting wet or whatever, like you keep putting up with it because it's familiar. um, and it's interesting to me how much we don't often recognize that our own nervous system is in a state of a familiar, I'm going to use the word emotional set point, and I'm going to define that for people who haven't heard that. Um, just like I learned that during my coaching program. It's trying to figure out how to put this into words simply. When Well, the best comparison I learned when I was learning about emotional set point was so often people have a particular weight that their body likes to be at. Not to say you don't gain or lose weight, but you generally hover around an area, within for most of us, within a certain range. And so maybe, you gain some weight and then you take some off, but you still kind of land back into that set point with your physical body. And that's also true with your emotional health. You're going to have the ups and you're going to have the downs, but there's like this equilibrium, and you can have an equilibrium that looks like a person who's extremely at peace most of the time, or you can have an equilibrium that looks like somebody who's just squeaking by and constantly in this state of like, oh my god, what's going to happen next, the extra contracted kind of feeling. Hopefully that makes sense the way I'm sure you've probably heard all this. I'm just sharing this for others. Do you have anything to add on that would simplify that explanation?
Yeah, I would just say that I would call it habituation or conditioning, and a lot of times people carry that from childhood because they grew up with parents who acted a certain way in a community that acted a certain way toward them, or, they either learned social skills that helped them feel good around people or that, made them feel uncomfortable around people. And so the set point kind of gets developed at an early age. And I think that's why people just kind of land in adulthood and they're like, oh, this is just how I am. But once you become aware and conscious that maybe you want to be a little bit different, then you can take measures to change that set point.
Yes, absolutely. Um, and the interesting thing I read recently was talking about how um, with negative thoughts, those will easily reproduce more negative thoughts. Like you can start to have a negative thought, like my example with the frustration earlier. You can start to have a negative thought like this shouldn't have happened. Oh no, this is terrible. I gotta fix it, and I could kept going on that train. Oh, I see what's happening. I'm resisting what's happening. And that's not beneficial. Whereas the emotion, or rather the positive thoughts, don't tend to replicate as easily as the negative ones do.
Especially if you're habituated for negative thinking, you know,
Yeah,
and then it takes effort to kind of switch tracks and to recognize, okay, I am thinking negatively, and how to change the thought. Louise Hay used to say, or maybe it was Abraham, like reach for a better feeling thought. Like if you're feeling frustration, can you be curious about that? Because
yeah,
curiosity is going to feel different than frustration.
right.
And so for me in my work as a psychotherapist, I really am helping people become aware of the emotional state so that they can do something different. Subconscious feelings are subconscious. And so people just kind of either ignore them or stuff them, or act them out, become very dramatic about them, when really they're just energy. I heard somebody describe it as energy in motion. And when you just notice, when you noticed that you were frustrated, and you're like, I could perpetuate that or not, and there's a completely different outcome when you perpetuate, the positive side of things versus the negative side of things.
That's absolutely true. And I've watched that play out in real life in my whole life, but especially with being a solo RV traveler. I'll share a little bit about that. So one great example, and I'm going to touch on what you said, that you've heard of people describe emotions as energy in motion. There's a scientist, what's her degree in? Pharmacology. Her name is Candace Pert.
Oh
She said,
yeah, by the molecules of emotion.
there you go.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure she quotes that in there, energy in motion. And talking about how our thoughts are electric and our emotions are electromagnetic, and we attract then more of whatever it is we're expressing. And obviously, especially if we act that out, right? Like now we've acted upon our frustration. I could have, instead of stopping and catching myself this morning, I could have taken my phone and just thrown it across the room. Now my phone's broken. Now I'm more frustrated. So but the idea that I lost my thought. Let's see. You were talking about
Energy in
the
motion.
energy in motion and how we attract. Okay, so I was driving my I've got a truck with a travel trailer, and the short version of a much longer story is I thought that I was gonna have a traveling companion, and life had different plans. And I found that out after I was already fully committed, like house sold, job quit. Now I'm out here in the Southwest picking up this trailer that I have no idea how to drive. And so there was a big learning curve. And I'm driving back, so a lot of stuff had transpired. I was starting to get a little bit more confident, but I hadn't really been on the highway yet. And so I was driving back to Illinois to spend some time for the holidays. And I got into Austin, Texas area, lots of traffic. And the thoughts started going, oh my God, what if I have an accident? And I kept trying to push the thought away. And nope, it'll be fine. I'm going to be fine. But the anxiety just kept sitting there. And instead of allowing myself to feel it and let it go, I just kept shoving it down. It's going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. But I wasn't really convinced I was going to be fine. I was pretty sure I was going to wreck the thing. And so I was so convinced that I might have an accident. I decided, well, I'm going to get over into the slow lane where there's less likely for there to be any kind of uh, expectation of me to have to hurry up and slow down or pass or whatever. I get into the slow lane, and no sooner, like, and I had even been thinking, because at this point I had noticed the synchronicities like that were constantly manifesting. So I'm noticing things happen in real time, and it's blowing my mind. And so I was like, that's why I kept pushing the thought down, like, no, I can't think that because I'm going to make something happen. So like I said, I get over into the slow lane, and I've only got maybe a couple more miles before I'm going to exit the highway. And I'll be damned if somebody doesn't slam on their brakes in front of me. And I was like, oh shit. And there's a special device that they install on your vehicle to help you control the brakes of the trailer behind you. And it has a red button, no kidding, it has a red button on it. And if you push this red button, it stops you right now. And so I was like, red button. And so I mean, I squealed. I left rubber on the pavement. And then I got off the highway right then. I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm gonna pull into this gas station and pull it in. And at that point, as soon as I felt like, okay, I'm not in danger of having an accident right now, I turned the car off before I even got all the way to the pump. I turned the car off, and oh, you're okay. It's all right. I love you. It's okay. Like, um, but
Yeah.
also recognizing that um, I brought that situation into my experience because I was so convinced that it was going to happen. I was drawing that energy.
Yeah. Yeah, most people don't recognize how they really I was listening to something the other day that was talking about how transparency people's psychological lives are way more transparent than you recognize, like because your life reflects what you're thinking all the time. And I mean, if you don't know that yet, then we're here to tell you to notice your thoughts and how they manifest over and over and over again. And some of it is so deeply buried. You know, it's so deeply buried in the conditioning in the early childhood experience.
Yes.
And that it takes effort to become aware of it. But once you do, there's an aha moment for you where you can just go, ah, yay, I don't have to be that way anymore. I don't have
Yeah.
to carry that belief forward. I don't have to carry that belief, generations forward that I've inherited from generations before me.
Yes. Yes. Um, the two thoughts come to mind. One, the thing you said about seeing what's like, you can see what people's state of mind is by looking at their life, and very much so, and recognizing from that perspective when something comes up that challenges you, that brings up whatever emotion, especially those ones we don't prefer, then it's like, how is this for me? What is it trying to teach me? How can I choose differently this time?
Yeah.
How can I show up for myself instead of what I've been doing? And um, then the other thing that you said, um, talking about the generational and how that ties in, and recognizing how epigenetics, the study of your environment's impact on your body, plays such a huge part. And we think that our genes are running the show, and they are contributing, but based on everything we've been talking about, if you recognize that you are the one that has the final say over, how your life plays out, then you don't have to continue with whatever package you were brought into this world with.
Yeah.
um, the generational trauma can be there, but it doesn't have to determine the outcome.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is really being shared from a mature spiritually developed place, a mature emotionally developed place. And And it doesn't have to take a miracle to get to the place of having spiritual and emotional maturity as well as physical maturity, and intellectual development. But you have to know that you're letting go, or that you're just not gonna live in those historical patterns, that the patterns that you're living now have to be conscious. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that humanity's going to learn in in the coming times, and that is be aware of what you're thinking and feeling, because it's going to show up, and practice doing that regularly.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And there's a lot of talk right now, and I'm not a person who dives into all of the drama that's happening in the news. I understand that it's having an impact on a lot of people. My perspective is, if I allow myself to get sucked down that rabbit hole, then I'm just adding to the mess. But at the same time, realizing from the perspective of this emotionally, spiritually developed self, what's happening is like an infection coming to a head so that it can be dealt with, because underneath, when you can't see it, you can't deal with it. And I've listened to Eckhart Tolle in the New Earth again, talking about that. This is, or no, it was in one of his videos, um talking about that the collective ego, the pain body of the whole, is surfacing, and that what we're seeing is all this woundedness,
Yeah.
and it's playing out, and it's challenging to watch. um but if you can find that place within yourself that says, somehow this is meant to help me evolve, somehow it's meant to help me grow, um then those things can be transitioned into, okay, yes, this is challenging, but it's also beneficial. um
Yeah, and I encourage people to just kind of take your lead on that, and don't get involved, because if you get involved in either side. I was speaking with somebody the other day, and I mean, in my work I have to be neutral, because if I'm putting off one side in favor of the other side, then I'm going to create an off-balance business for myself. And part of doing therapy work is about noticing your biases. And if the second you jump on any side of the bandwagon, you're contributing your life force energy, your awareness, your creative potential. You're dumping it in a cesspool. And so don't do that. There's an aha moment for you. Stop dumping your creative life force energy into any of the pools that make you feel yucky, whether they make you feel pissed off or depressed or even joyous. If you're jumping on the joyous bandwagon, you better be very clear and discerning that it's somewhere you want to be. I think
yeah,
most people are like, I hate that, and so I don't want to be a part of that. But the second you hate something, you're a part of it, just on the shadow side of it.
yeah, you're giving it
Hello.
energy 100%. um i I study a book called A Course in Miracles, and there's a verse in there that says, trying to remember how it goes now. I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have it memorized. um we are all spirit, and we are in a state of grace forever. In other words, everything is neutral, and that's not a popular statement. um, but the contradiction, the opposite of that is, you can fuck it up, and you better be scared.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's, well, okay, it's okay to have preferences, but like you said, if you get too deep into a preference, then you've given yourself over to one side, and if something goes in opposition of that preference, then now all of a sudden your whole world is rocked, because given all of your energy over to, well, this is the way it is. It has to be like this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I would say the only thing that you want to give your life force energy to is presence, conscious awareness, creating the feelings, noticing what that thing is that you're looking out there for, noticing where it really arises
Mm,
and going and cultivating it there, because then you will wake up to the truth of who you really are and what you're really capable of.
mm. Yes. Yes, absolutely. I have a friend on Facebook that when I was looking through Facebook earlier today, and she had posted this thing that was talking about uh well, I won't get too deep into it 'cause, again, the life force energy thing, but basically it was saying is pointing people back into the direction of we put our trust in these entities. And in reference to the post, I commented, yeah, I had my own wake up as a result of, well, it's been 10 years ago, my daughter passed, and she was 11 at the time. And it was a very challenging circumstance, to say the least. And of course, at the time, I couldn't imagine that anything positive could ever come from that. Um, but it was the beginning of me asking some very, very challenging questions because I was so raw at that point that the only place that felt safe was to go in and ask myself some really challenging questions. And when I came out with the answer is, and it took me a while, a long while, um, it, when I came out with, okay, um, unconditional love means just that. It's unconditional, and only I can give it to myself. Because if I am looking for somebody else to give it to me, I'm likely going to be disappointed, and also I've put it outside of myself. I've made it to where somebody else is responsible for creating that, and when they can't or won't do it anymore, now I've lost something. But I didn't really lose anything. I lost an idea. Is what I lost.
Wow.
um so yeah, it took me a long while to get there, but I was able to look at that situation and go, oh my goodness, it was for me. It was for me.
There, aha, right? I, I, I can't say it to all of my clients at all of their different stages of development, but what I know to be true for my own self is all of the things that hurt me the worst became the greatest gifts because that's how I became who I am.
Yeah,
And you know what? I really like me. And I hope those people listening, I hope you like yourself too.
that's it right there. That's it. um that's You asked me in reference to the event that I'm having this evening, which of course by the time this is published it'll be long over, but um about the what was the intention of my meeting. And honestly, yes, I would like to grow an audience. I'm not going to lie about that. But also, it allow the opportunity to see somebody else free themselves in a way of loving themselves more than they did, even if it was 5 minutes ago, and even if it's just this much more, is it's like watching a baby be born. It's just like, oh wow, you know. So it's a little bit selfish on my part to get to experience watching somebody learn to give themselves more compassion.
I love
And
it.
yeah, and it's um beneficial to us all. We as a women in this culture, and I'm sure probably around the world for the most part, we get taught that it's selfish to love yourself. And at least that's been my experience in the past. And don't, that isn't the way you help others, but you can't do it any other way. You
No,
can't love others more than you love yourself. It's just not
no, you really
possible.
can't.
Yeah.
And life, we get it. I mean, both you and I know that life can shave you off at the ankles every other day, and it's really hard. It can be really hard. I would say it's probably easier than you think to develop self-love and self-acceptance. I'm just speaking to whoever's listening to this recording because I know you know it. Um, my breathwork teachers said during our breathwork training, the more I love myself, the more others can love me, and the more others can love themselves in my presence. And so it's like kind of lighting the match, and
Yes.
then everybody's match gets lit.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a post recently that resonated deeply, and it was, well, in this particular case, the meme was saying, the first victim of anger is you. Well, the reverse of that is also true. The first um, beneficiary of love is you. And as coming back to what we were talking about earlier, what you experience is what you attract based on what your thoughts are that create your feelings, and then the actions. Um, if you are choosing to love yourself, then that's the kind of experience that you're going to have. And like you said, the people around you will then experience that too, because if you're choosing to love yourself, you don't want to stay in a state of judgment or anger or whatever the case might be. Not to say you won't have those feelings,
Yeah.
but you don't want to camp out there because it feels yucky and you don't want to give yourself that gift. So even if you feel justified to have whatever that feeling is, you begin to recognize, is this the way I want to feel? Is this what I'm going
Right.
to continue to choose?
And so
um
stop justifying, right? Stop
yeah,
justifying feeling yucky.
yeah, yeah. And it comes back to, we're in a constant state of grace, because we're spirit. And so it's, we have that sovereignty, we have that free will. And yes, other people can do things that we don't prefer, and it's absolutely, excuse me, within our freedom to set some loving boundaries for ourselves. Like, okay, this person thinks it's a good idea to be abusive towards me. I'm not okay with that. I'm going to walk away, without diving into, like you said, adding to the pool. Like, I'm going to make them wrong and I'm going to make them pay. And, um, because you're the one that feels that. And
What a
although it
waste of
ripples
energy.
out, yeah, although it ripples out, it still starts with you.
It absolutely does. And if you're putting hate out there, guess what?
Yeah, yeah.
You're adding to the hate pool. Yikes. Let's get on the love pool. Heart coherence.
Yay.
Seriously, let's entrain the field of humanity. Let's entrain the field of the planet in heart coherence. I mean, could you imagine? Could you imagine if everybody right now took a deep breath right into their heart and there were 9 billion people doing that all at the same time? You know, thinking loving thoughts and peaceful thoughts changes the world.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine who introduced me to, I had heard of it once before, but I wasn't especially familiar with the terminology, called the, and I might not pronounce this correctly, Mihara, Maharashi effect. I'm not sure how to say it.
Maharishi.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Um, and I hadn't, like, I think I first heard that reference when I was reading The Power of Eight by Lynn McTaggart, um, and possibly in Power versus Force. Um, but but yes, there's scientific studies, and also, like the Heart Math Institute, there's scientific studies that show that, meditation or heart coherence um, are capable of shifting um, not just your own personal experience, but global stuff, and hard science backing it up. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's,
I
go
would
ahead.
love to see that shift. You know, I think that's the kind of shift that humanity really needs is a shift towards positive intention, versus, oh, we're so scared about what's happening everywhere. We're so scared about what's happening outside. We're so scared about it. We're posting about it. We're shaking in our boots, versus how are you doing?
What's
Let's all,
happening right now? What's happening
yeah.
right now? Yeah,
How are you today? Are you feeling okay? Are you fed? Do you have what you need? You know, getting back to basics,
yeah,
simpler life.
yeah, yeah. That brings to mind a story from when I mentioned that my original plan for RV traveling fell to pieces pretty quickly. Um, and when I discovered that the person, well, discovered isn't the word. When I chose to recognize that the person I had planned to travel with was not going to be available to me permanently, um, I went into a tailspin for a little bit, and um, I was staying in an intentional community that was just at the beginning phases of forming, and the people there were helpful, quite a bit helpful, but I still had this feeling of doom, like I'm just screwed. And I was just beside myself and made myself sick, literally made myself sick. Broke out with cold sores around my mouth because my cortisol levels were through the roof. And I had to get, one of the gentlemen that was helping me kept saying, I know you feel like you're not safe, but you have what you need. You have water, you have shelter, whatever the other thing he said, but getting to those basics. And, and it took me a while to get to a point because I felt my basic needs were not being met. I had convinced myself of that, even though that wasn't actually true. I was in this psychological story of, well, but I don't know how to do this, and I don't know how I'm going to figure out that. And so it became very much of a trust situation. And it got worse before it got better because the person who was running the community asked me what my long-term plans were, and I said to her, I don't know what my day is going to look like, let alone months from now. I have no idea. And I ended up telling her, well, I just won't be here. And she said, okay. And then she said, so I need you to make plans to be gone in the next couple of days. And I was like, what? Like, and um, I initially I was like, okay, how is this for me? Well, I haven't been happy here because of, the environment doesn't suit me. And so it helps me make a decision to remove myself from this situation because now I have to make a decision. Um, and then I went from that to all these feelings started flooding in, and um, asking myself, and of course I was trying to put the onus for the feelings outside, right? Somebody else is making these feelings happen. No, that's not true. I know that's not true. I only can make my feelings. Nobody can make them for me. And so what is this? What is this? Back to, you said, the childhood stuff. Oh, I feel abandoned. Well, that's not really a feeling. What am I actually feeling? And I dove into, I had been reading and teaching on nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg. And I dove into, okay, sometimes, and as a therapist, I'm sure you encounter this a lot. you don't even recognize all the feelings. Like when I first read the book and I was like, okay, they're calling this one's an interpretation. Abandonment, for example, isn't actually a feeling, it's an interpretation. Um, and then I'm reading through this list of feelings and I'm like, okay, yeah, okay. These are feelings. These are, wow, I had some ahas just around that. And the needs, what are the needs? And we aren't all often familiar with the needs. And so I looked through these feelings and this list. I highly recommend it for people who are still learning how to get better acquainted with this. Um, and I started picking out which feelings. And, the feelings were like terrified, despair, and so I start, oh, all right, can I allow myself to, now that I recognize that I've labeled it, can I look at it from up here and say, oh, I feel terrified instead of I am terrified. I feel terrified. I feel despair. I feel whatever else. And that's when it started to shift because I was no longer being that thing. I was feeling that thing. And from there, then I made the next choice. And I reminded myself, all I have to do right now is make one decision. I don't have to have it all figured out. And the universe was extremely supportive in that situation because there was an RV park nearby that I ended up deciding to stay at. And the short version of the story is I met a gentleman there from day one. Within the hour of me pulling in, he's helping me get sorted. And he's like, you can stay here for a month and it only costs $100 more than staying here a week. And I was like, okay, sign me up. Because I just needed this, like, I got to figure my life out, And little by little, he discovered what was going on with me. And he, out of the goodness of his heart and a passion for what he loved to do, he helped me revamp my RV, my camper, which was one of my big concerns because I was like, okay, this companion was going to be helping me with these things that I don't know anything about. And he's like, I'll do it. And I was like, what can I give you? And he's like, nothing. I don't want anything. And I was like, the universe put me in the right place at the right time. And then, of course, at some point, I had to leave there and grow some more and experience some more. And it just kept happening. Every time I felt like, okay, I'm in over my head. I need some help. There it is. There it is.
Boom. Yeah.
Because I was trusting. And that's a big one. That's a really big one. We tend to put that trust outside of ourselves. And I think that kind of comes full circle to some of the things we've been talking about. Like we think that something outside of us is going to save the day.
Yeah.
And it's really about showing up for yourself.
Absolutely. And our entire culture is built on that. The authority is outside of yourself. And we're here to tell you that it's not. Like the true authority is within you. And you have access to it just as much as I have access to it. But there's oftentimes a lot of interference between, that worries and concerns and not, feelings and just all of the things that we get caught up in. So congratulations on trusting and getting your needs met in a good way.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, I agree. We all have that access to that authority. But it takes full authorship, and that can feel scary when you suddenly realize, like, oh, the buck stops here. And you're like, oh, I don't feel prepared for that at all. Like, what if I screw it up?
Yeah.
Like,
But how interesting every time you let go and trust that, whatever you need shows up, whether it's in the form of a person. Forms aren't the things that are going to save you. It's your ability to discern the guidance that's happening.
yes.
Am I showing up where I'm guided to show up? And then boom.
And am I being in this present moment? Am I accepting that who I am right now is okay? And even if that means right now I'm a mess and I just need to sit here and be a mess for a minute, And at the same time, like, okay, now I'm done being a mess. It's time to make a decision, you know.
And
not from
once
that
you
place
just
of like my whole world fell apart, but just like, okay, what needs to happen right now?
yeah, because you're not camped out in the feelings. And because you didn't, because you discharged that energy, it cleared up your mind so that you could see what needs to happen next. And I think that's what people really want to experience is, am I going to come out the other end in a good way? And most of the times we do.
Right, right. Yeah, most of the stuff that we worry about doesn't actually happen. And then even those times that something does happen, we show up for ourselves in ways that we wouldn't have guessed. One of the things that I had heard more times than I can count after my daughter passed was, I just can't imagine I couldn't live through that. And you know, at that time, and I understand their perspective now and I see it differently, but at that time I remember thinking, what are my choices? I show up or I die. That's my choice. So we don't give ourselves enough credit for how much we're capable of working through difficult situations, even though we've done it. All of
Yeah,
us, my story may be different than somebody else's, but we've all experienced difficulties and had to work through it, and here we are.
yeah,
We did it.
absolutely. Get on the victor side instead of the victim side of things. Life happens. It's not happening to you, it's happening.
Yeah,
And
and it's
the
happening for you. I'm going to share a quote because it
yes,
ties in really well. I don't know if you're familiar with Byron Katie. She wrote a book called
yeah,
Loving What Is. That one was a big game changer for me. A friend of mine made very pretty watercolor cards that she framed and of quotes by Byron Katie. This one says, um, life is simple. Everything happens for you, not to you. Everything happens at exactly the right moment, neither too soon nor too late. You don't have to like it. It's just easier if you do.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
very
it's
matter of
those
fact.
kinds of, sorry, say again.
Very matter of fact.
Yes. It's those kinds of thoughts that are very empowering when I recognize that I'm here to evolve, and also recognize that even from a scientific point of view, um, evolution, building resiliency in any part of your body, whether that's your muscles, your bones, your nervous system, um, requires some level of stress. But it's then recognizing that the stress is there to help you grow. So it's managing the stress in a way that's beneficial. I watched a video of a professor teaching her students, and she asked them the question, "What comes to mind? What how do you feel when I say the word resiliency?" They're like, "Powerful. That feels really strong." And she said, "How about if I say the word resilient?" And she says, "Oh," the student said, frustrated. That sounds kind of icky." And she said, "It's interesting that you say that, because what takes place in the neuron, um, is when you experience some kind of stress, the neuron is actually having some kind of what's the word that I want?
Excitation is the word that's coming to mind.
Okay, yes, and I'm thinking like a
Stimula.
degradation, but that's not the word I want.
Mhm.
Anyway, some kind of erosion type. There's
Oh,
stress happening. Something's breaking down. Just like when you're building
mhm.
muscles, you have to break them down a little bit first. Um, and so then the cells say, "Oh, there's damage. We need to go repair that." And now it's stronger. So the cell is actually stronger, more resilient. Obviously, that needs to be happening in a way that is manageable, you
Yeah.
know, and coming back, like you mentioned, the breath work, or the stuff we've talked about, the stories we tell ourselves, um, making that happen in such a way that it's not so much stress that you just cause more damage than good. But the act of being resilient is is a built-in mechanism. Frustration is a built-in mechanism of that, because the
Yeah.
cells are actually experiencing this chemical reaction that's saying, okay, we got to fix this.
There,
And
there is
yeah,
research that shows that in childbirth, like the stress of childbirth actually strengthens the baby's brain, the baby's lungs, the baby's so the right amount of stress gets you into optimal function. But if you don't have enough stress, then it's almost like you don't get there. And then if you've got too much stress, it breaks things down. And so life itself, I think, evolves with that kind of right amount of stress built in.
yes. And it's coming back to, can you be in the flow, right? Can you just go with what's happening to the best of your ability instead of resisting it, which causes too much stress.
Yes.
And especially if you're telling yourself a big story about it. And more for me, coming to understand that being in this present moment is not only about recognizing my state, but recognizing that anything that's not happening right now, anything that's not an observable fact, is an interpretation of some psychological future that I've created that's likely causing me stress. And I made the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, for, to give an example, because people say, well, what does that mean, an observable fact? I'm having a conversation with you right now. That's an observable fact. Do I know what's going through your head or how this conversation is going to end? I have no idea. Do I know what people are going to think of this video? No, I don't know that either. It's none of my business.
Yeah. Yeah. So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Are you having fun making it?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
I'm enjoying this conversation quite a bit.
Same.
Awesome. So, are there any other stories? I'm recognizing the time. I don't want to keep you too long.
Yeah.
Um, are there any other stories or last thoughts that you would want to share with the people listening?
Yeah, just to reiterate, I mean, life is a series of little aha moments, and the more you can become in tune with your aha moments, the more you're really going to enjoy the whole process. And um, yeah, just may you have loads and loads of enjoyment.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.